Hi guys, welcome back to the desktop for another rules breakdown, and this time I'm going to be doing the King Arthur Pendragon role-playing game by Chaosium Games. Now this was the first edition and the only version I've got, which was released in 1985. There was a second edition which was never released, although I don't know the story behind why that was never released. The third edition came out in 1990. There was a fourth edition in 1993, so not long between different editions. And then there was a break, and the fifth edition came out in 2005, and there were various updates to that in the years since, I believe a 5.1 and a 5.2 edition. But I do not have any of those. I only have this first edition. The rules are supposedly based on the basic role-playing system. It's the same system as used by Call of Cthulhu. So I guess we'll see as we break these down. Now, skills in Pendragon work in two different ways, depending against whether you're just rolling against a standard target number or whether you're competing with someone. So going into the book, we've got the rule book there, but we've got these character sheets, and these will be useful for rolling the skills. So we can see that the character here, Agravain, a villainous knight, he has a skill of awareness 7. So he's trying to spot somebody sneaking into his castle, so he gets a d20 and he rolls it against his awareness. And he rolls an 11, so he fails. Now, if he's competing against somebody, so let's bring the character sheet back up, we can see he has a sword skill of 12. So, Agravain is sword fighting somebody, we'll say they have the same skill as him. So, he rolls, and he rolls a 1. So, he succeeds. But the person he's fighting against, they roll their skill as well. And they roll a 20, so they're automatically failing. But let's say they rolled a 3. Now, they would have beaten his roll, but rolled under their skill. So they would have won the round of combat, having rolled higher than him, but still less than their skill. And that's the way it works. So if people are competing, then you have to roll in the gap between what the other person rolled and your skill. If the person obviously busts out of their skill, then they have failed. Now, looking at the character sheets for initiative, we will see there is none. There's nothing which covers initiative. Because, flicking through to the combat chapter, there, page 65 of the rules. Armor protection, weapons, the melee round. The basic time measure for combat is the melee round. There's a small elastic unit of time required to do one action in melee. One action in melee includes these: exchange blows, parry and rearm, rearm, turn a horse, look around and prepare, mount a horse, etc., etc. Pendragon uses the following combat system to determine the winners and losers of a fight. Each time combat is joined, the following procedure should be followed: determination phase, all combatants state what they're doing this round; resolution phase, both combatants roll their respective weapon resolutions; winner's phase, the winner rolls his damage done; loser's phase, if the loser received a successful skill roll and if he was using a one-handed weapon and shield, he adds 6 points of shield protection to his armor that round; and movement phase, characters who do not fight may move simultaneously. Now, that's the way it works. Everybody acts at the same time. So if two people are fighting each other, they hit themselves at the same time, because this is a descriptive system. It's not really technical, so people can't go faster than others and strike. It's chivalric combat, so people are fighting at the same time. It's generic. You're not just trying to hit somebody, it's the feints and attacks and blocks until somebody succeeds that round. Now, I've obviously covered the combat skills just there. You're rolling your sword skill against the sword skill and attempting to get higher than your opponent but lower than your skill. But if we flick open the rulebook, if I can find the page. Game mechanics. So, winners and losers. The opposed resolution may result in either a winner and a loser, or 2 losers. A winner must roll with his own skill and also roll equal to or greater than his opponent's roll. A loser must either roll over his success level or roll under that number and also under his opponent's roll. Both opponents may be loser if both fail their success roll. Tied rolls, when both are successful, mean that no one won. If one of the tied rolls is a critical success, however, then that character is the winner and receives the usual critical success results. If a critical result is lower than an opponent's normal success, the critical result fails. Now, we've also got here skill modifiers. Modifiers to skills are common in the game. A mounted fighter receives +5 to his attack skill against a footman, or a special hawk might add +5 to the character's hawking skill. Modifiers are always added to the skill level, not to the dice roll. So that's how you do combat. You're rolling skill against skill and succeeding. Or if the person's not fighting back, you would just be rolling under your skill. So damage in Pendragon is based upon the character. If we look at the character sheet here for Agravain again, we can see they have a damage of 3d6 written down. Looking on other ones, we have this character, Arthur the Squire, who does 4d6. So the characters each do a certain amount of damage, but depending on what weapon they're using, if we flip through to page 65, the combat section of the main rules again, we can see the different weapons here. So axe, this one-handed weapon is favoured by the Saxons. It does normal damage against all targets and an additional +2 damage against any combatant using a shield. A great spear, it's add 5 to any attack skill for footmen against horsemen. Sword. Swords do not break when the user fumbles. So every weapon has a special ability, basically, against every other. But the characters do damage based on their own attribute. So Agravain here does 3d6 damage. So in combat, we roll 3d6. And he does 8 points of damage. Going back to the combat section, though, that damage will be reduced by any armor he's wearing, or the target's wearing. So page 65, we can see armor table. Leather has 4 points of protection. Light chain has 8. Heavy chain, 10. And these are reduced from the amount of damage done. So, for instance, Sir Ambret has been struck for 17 points of damage while wearing 10-point armor. After subtracting the value of his armor, only 7 points of damage actually penetrate the armor and damage the knight. Now, health in Pendragon is by usual hit points. If we have a look at this character sheet again, we can see that Agravain here has 22 total hit points. But what does that mean? If we flick through to page 41, I believe it's page 41, we can see states of health. So, total health. A character has full hit points. No character can ever have more than his total hit points. Lightly wounded. Damages from 1 point to a quarter of the character's total hit points. All activities are allowed at normal level. Seriously wounded. Damage is between 1/4 and 1/2 of total. Any strenuous activity such as combat stops any healing for that week. Social activity, romantic activity, and leisurely travel are allowed without consequence. Grievously wounded. Damage is between 1/2 and 3/4. Character is capable of any activity, but at half normal skill level. Any movement stops healing for that week. Major wound. Any major wound which does not cause death results in debilitation. The character suffering from major wound receives a roll on the statistics lost table of the campaign chapter. The victim of major wound also receives a permanent scar to add to his distinctive features. So as you can see, as you take damage, you work your way up through these levels, and it adds to more character for your character. Because, going back to the character sheet, we can see distinctive features. Handsome face, whiplash moustache, arrogant smirk. But if he's got any scars, he will add those to those distinctive features. And we will be able to see whether his character is heavily scarred on the face because he received a major wound to the face. Or perhaps he has a missing finger or such. As for healing, if we flip to page 41, we can see when a character is damaged, he must regain his hit points through healing. Healing equals con plus strength divided by 10, which is the number of hit points regained each week. So, plucking out Agravain again, we can see his strength is 9, his con is 13. That's 22. So he heals 2 hit points per week. So 10 plus 2 is 22, divided by 10 is 2.2, rounded down to 2. Now in Pendragon, a large part of the goal of the game, if we flick to the section which is about the goal of the game, the object of the game, glory. So your character's seeking glory to rise up the ranks of knight. And obviously Pendragon's a bit of a different game because you're playing through different generations. Each adventure in Pendragon is 1 year, which is why healing is so long, as we just discussed. So over the course of a year, various things will happen. You might go on a quest and adventure, but there'll be social events and all that, and you will build your status. But eventually your character will die, either in adventuring or purely because they get too old, because the aging events through each year will reduce their stats and they'll just not become playable anymore. And you'll move on to their children and follow your family dynasty. But the glory continues as you build the success of your family. But as with most other role-playing games, there's individual experience. Now, if we look at the character sheet, we can see all the skills here have little boxes next to them. And like Call of Cthulhu, which we discussed a few weeks ago, if you roll the skill and you succeed and the Games Master says so, you can check off your skill as having been successfully used. And then during the winter period, the downtime of the game, when you're not adventuring, all the skills which have been checked off, you roll a d20 against. So, Agravain here used his awareness of 7, he succeeded, and the Games Master was like, yep, that was a learning event, check the box. So, Agravain rolls his d20, he rolls a 17, which is higher, so he increases his awareness. Now, although it's not really advancement, aging is a major event in Pendragon, so let's have a look at the times. So, every character past 35 years of age must roll on the aging table every midwinter. This is done by rolling 2d6 and checking the results against this table. So let's roll 2d6. And we get 3. So 3 on the table, he's lost 3 statistic points. And then we roll on the lost table. So we roll 1d6. So his first point is lost from 2. He loses 1 point of dexterity. And he rolls again. He rolls a 6. So he actually didn't lose anything. And he rolls a third time. And he rolled a 1. So he loses a point of size. And that's his attributes lost for the 1 year. And as the years go by, he loses more and more. You can also lose points from major wounds and subtract 1 point from each of the statistics shown in the results, losing 0 to 4 points in a statistic per year. When any characteristic reaches 3 or less, the character is bedridden and may no longer participate in active play. A bedridden character no longer receives any glory, but continues to age. When a characteristic reaches 0, the character dies. So, Pendragon, you have your characters aging and dying, and new characters entering play. And that is a very brief look over Pendragon. Now, Pendragon is a wonderful role-playing game. I've stolen ideas of carrying on family dynasties into my Dungeons & Dragons play, as I think it's a really lovely idea. And these rules are a lot easier. The other game that I've covered, which is almost as old as this, or was actually older, was Bushido. And the rules were very, very hard to pick up because they weren't well written. But Pendragon is surprisingly modern in its style of writing. There are large sections of examples. There's actually a full page of combat examples to really let you see how things work. And I cannot recommend this game highly enough. Anyway, I think I've spoken for long enough on this subject. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, as you do me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm if you do, and they look favourably upon me for you doing that. But most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.